Hey, everybody. Welcome to our call tonight. I am so excited to have Josie Kennedy with us, and we are just going to share our Plexus testimonies with you of just how Plexus has been that missing link for our health. Real quick, how I met Josie is we just last year we had a Plexus trip together, and we met on a bus headed to
Oh, to SeaWorld for a private viewing.
we went to SeaWorld. And so we figured it out that she is from Pittsburgh and I grew up a couple hours north of Pittsburgh. So we had so many connections and just hit it off. So I am excited for you to meet Josie tonight and hear her story. And then I'm going to share mine when she's finished. All right, Josie, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, I always love sharing my story because it's not what you think. I had struggled with severe heartburn reflux probably for a year and a half or better. And it was really interfering, get this, with a glass of wine and the red sauce on my pasta. That was really the only reason that I was looking for something to help with that. And little did I know it would take me on this long or this amazing health journey. Wait till you hear all the things that happen. So I'm just trying to get after severe heartburn and reflux. My mom brought us up on supplements. We always kind of had the idea to kind of try get after things naturally if we can. I was on the brink of having to get a prescription drug, and I was like, anything but that. So I was getting all these probiotics from Amazon with 5-star reviews, like they were supposed to be the best of the best. And I literally had no relief from any of them. And I remember I'm an older mommy. I became a mommy at 42 when we adopted our sweet daughter. And by the time she was 2 years old, I had enough of this severe heartburn and reflux. I mean, the kind where you had to sit up in bed and prop yourself up. It was terrible. So it was 1 o'clock in the morning, and I found a friend, or a friend now, but a complete stranger mentioned something about a probiotic. 1 o'clock in the morning when the 2-year-old's ready to wake up soon. I was like, okay, what are you using? And next thing you know, I get a link. And I mean, my husband had no idea. I don't recommend that, but I was desperate. I went ahead and I bought my first triplex. So I went ahead and I was trying to hide it, and after, I'll tell you what, within a week, my husband's like, what are you doing? He's like, something was different. Like I started having just more energy. I was coming downstairs happier. I was more patient. I had some developments even within the first week of just trying to heal my gut. And I remember I was standing by the back door and I took a sip of coffee and I remember being like, oh my gosh, I'm not burning. Like, what is this? Like, there's something really cool going on here. So what's really cool is I forgot to cancel my following order. I was only going to use this for a month. You know how that goes. Like, I'll use it for a month and we'll see if it works. Well, mom life kicks in and I totally forgot to cancel my order. And the next one comes in and I'm just like, all right, whatever. Next thing you know, my husband wants to go ahead and he's ordering too. And we're feeling great, you guys. So as time is going on, I started to realize that having poor sleep is not part of the mom club as I had thought it was, and along with so many other things. It used to take me an hour to fall asleep. And then I would wake up in the middle of the night for no reason at all. And then it would take an hour to fall back to sleep. I had major sugar and carb cravings. I'm talking like after you eat dinner, I was like, I craved it like somebody would crave a cigarette. And I would literally eat a full-size candy bar and wash it down with a beer because you want to talk about sugar and carb cravings galore. And as I was learning more and more, I'm like, oh, that was candida yeast overgrowth in my system. That was like really driving these carbs cravings. It was preventing me from absorbing supplements or nutrients properly. My skin was dull. My mood was lousy. My brain fog was terrible. And so again, as I continued using the supplements, one day my husband looked at me. He's like, I'm trying to remember a basketball player's name. I'm like, oh, it's so-and-so. He looked at me. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was from 13 years ago. How is it that I would remember something like that? And just today, I'm at this hair salon and they're like, wow, who's this singer from the 80s? I'm like, oh, that's so-and-so. I'm like even still, it shocks me because my memory used to be really bad. It's not the greatest, but it's way better than what it used to be. So when the most unexpected thing that I experienced after all of like being on the products for maybe coming up on my 4th month is I struggle with PCOS. And I was a hard one to diagnose because the blood work would sometimes show stuff. But what I had for 20 years was an ovarian cyst rupture every month for 20 years. It was unbelievable pain. Like it would rupture and I would be out at church, dinner, a party, driving down the highway, you name it. And I would be crumpled over in pain. And it was, again, about the 4th month, I want to say. And I looked at my husband one day where 80% of our immune system is created. And no wonder my autoimmune condition was kicking in. It was just, and it was starting to heal. So I remember being almost in tears because I remember thinking, "Oh, I did not see this coming whatsoever. I was just trying to get back to enjoying a glass of wine and pasta with red sauce, you know." So that was the biggest part and the most successful thing about my story. And in and it's so easy to share because so many people struggle with things that we think are just normal everyday things. But when they start to stack up, life really starts to get miserable. And so one day I did a post. I just was sharing, just like we would share like a Target or whatever. And I had an overwhelming response. And that was a real surprise because, guys, if you don't know this about me, but if somebody ever asked me to go to a candle party, a pampered chef party, and nothing against them, but you would have to try and drag me out from under a table to ever get involved in anything like that. It just wasn't my jam. But because this was like so life-changing, I couldn't shut up about it. I'm like, this is incredible. And next thing you know, it just developed into a business. And the one thing about our family is I was blessed with our family through adoption after waiting for 18 years to kept trying to, have a successful pregnancy and all these things. So when we got our daughter, there was nothing that made me want to leave the house. I wanted to be there and not miss a moment. I waited forever for this. We did. And so this developed into a significant business that I never would have expected, where I can stay home with my daughter, where I don't have to work out of the house for like working 50 and 60 hours a week anymore. So when people say, "Oh no, I can't do that, I'm not a salesperson," I'm like, "Oh no, you don't understand." Neither am I. But when you share something that's made such a difference, it's easy and it's fun and it's fulfilling. And so that's just a little bit of my story. Let me know if I missed anything, but yeah, that's my story.
I love it. And I think it's so inspiring because everyone's health is so different and what we need is so different. And so I just think this is a fantastic opportunity to hear, your story about how all Plexus has changed your world. I too struggled with reflux, and if I ate red sauce, watermelon, anything like it, I would be up with the burning, sleeping upwards, all the things. And so it's been so freeing just with that. And I hear so many people tell me the same thing, like I've never had relief from reflux. But my story goes way beyond that, as far as just a lot of gut issues. And especially with just getting, I'm going to mute a couple of people here so we don't feedback. Just getting over having 4 babies back to back. I found that my hormones weren't balancing, they weren't rebounding like they used to, and I started having a lot of just constipation issues, which turned into sinus infections. I would be on antibiotics at least 2 to 3 times a year for sinus infections. And a cold would turn into a sinus infection, everything, just every time. My immune system was so down. And with having 5 kids in the house, we always had sickness just going circle, 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 round and round. And so it's just been such a gift to have health. And along with that, I've been a pretty industrious wife. My husband is a pastor. And so we have a pretty set income for our family. And so I found that I would give piano lessons, I would babysit, I would figure out different ways to make extra income for our family. And so what I did before I found Plexus was I refinished furniture, and I started just growing that business and refinishing kitchen cabinets and doing interior design and decorating. And what happened was a client canceled their check on me before I got home. And they harassed me for days, saying they're going to take me into court, sue me for all the things. And at that point, my health just completely went under. Like, it was post-traumatic stress disorder. My youngest little guy had my 3-year-old picked him up and dropped him, and he broke his leg. And he had 9 ear infections in the first 2 years of his life. So we were sleep deprived, stressed. We moved into a small little house, and I was just completely exhausted and depleted in every way. And so that's when my cry where it came from was just total desperation for health. And my husband started taking care of the family full time, cooking dinner full time. And I would sit at the table with tears streaming down my face because I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get it together. And so I went to a pastor's wives conference and I made myself sit through a session on depression. And this pastor's wife shared how she had depression and she was under for 4 years. She said she didn't leave her house and it completely crippled her. And that was enough to scare me to take action and figure something out because I had all the red flags. And so a friend had shared Plexus with me and Plexus came to mind. I reached out to her, started researching, and sure enough, so much of my health issues were gut related. And I had no idea about yeast overgrowth or candida, and so as I started to address this, the first thing I noticed was energy. That was life. The next thing I noticed was I was sleeping, like I was falling asleep on the couch, and I battled with insomnia. And so it would be hours of tossing and turning just to try to get myself to fall asleep. And I'd finally fall asleep and then 3 a.m. would hit and my body's trying to reset and I'm awake and I can't fall back asleep again. And it was awful. But when I started Plexus, I say this a lot, I slept like a husband. Don't sleep good. Husbands, they sleep good. I slept like a husband and I still do. And so even that, as a mama, as a pastor's wife, as people who are always giving to those around us and always serving others, I didn't serve myself first, and when you're in an airplane, you got to get that airbag first on your face so that you can help those around you, right? It's practical implication, and that is what it is going to take for us and our health too. And so that's just my story in brief, but it's been an incredible journey. And to be able to now open my mouth to share hope for health, I'm now transitioned from seeing furniture being completely transformed to now seeing lives completely transformed, right? And how much more rewarding, to see lives that are impacted and people finding optimal health, no longer struggling the way that they once did, coming off of medications, having that second chance at life. And so it's turned into an opportunity for me to do this. And we get paid to do this. And I'm like, this is amazing. We get paid to help people live their best life. And so I grew my business. When I first started, my husband's like, you're not doing anything else. I just need my wife back. And I was like, I really think I could just love stepping into this. And so I just started taking baby steps, starting educating myself. And in 8 months, I grew my business to the 3rd highest rank in the company, which is called Emerald. And we have maintained that. And it has been an incredible journey to raise up leaders, to bring financial freedom to our family. And we were able to move out of our small little rental. And we just purchased our home this last year. And so just so many answers to prayer, so many desires and dreams in our hearts that we couldn't even let ourselves look at, for those seasons of like, I can't even bear to look at these dreams to even think that these could even be possible. And Plexus has made these possible. So that's my story in a nutshell. Josie, do you have anything you want to add?
As far as like the sleep, I totally get, but the opportunity part is what always took me by complete surprise. And I was sharing with Kaylene right before I got on was I went to the salon and I happened to mention I had samples in my purse, which I never really do. I should do that more often, but my hairdresser and the owner of the salon both are saying I have PCOS. I'm like, well, we need to talk, because you got to hear my story. So it's easy to share. You don't always have to have your own story, but what I would want to tell you guys is there's a lot of people out there suffering silently, and the number of people that have reached out to me that may have never liked a post that I may have shared or anything would message me. I'm like, I thought they were the picture of health. So there's a lot more to people's story than you think. And to be a blessing to somebody like this, that that's what was fulfilling for me. And another side note is my husband is interviewing for a position with a company, and because he can't move up. He can't move up unless the person in front of him either moves or he moves to a different department. And so that's what I think is so awesome about this, because I used to have to wait up to 3 years for my own personal raise when I worked for a construction company, So there's just all these little bits and pieces that I'm like, this just made so much sense for us. This made so much sense for me. So that part I think will always astound me, is I never expected to land this as a job that I absolutely love.
I love that. And Josie, tell us, how long have you been with Plexus?
I've been with them for 6 years. For 6 years, and it feels like way shorter, because when you love something, it kind of like flies by, and I'm like, yeah, 6 years. I'm like, yeah. So my daughter's 8 years old now. She was 2 whenever we started this.
Wow, that's awesome. And it shows, how effective these supplements are, even 6 years later. And even my sponsor, Brittany Howard, she too has been around for about 6 years as well. And it's just incredible testimony, to see the longevity. Plexus has been around for over 14 years, and they do clinical studies on their products. And, they do everything to be very transparent, to be a very reputable company with high quality supplements. And I actually was just talking to a lady today on the phone, and she left to go to another company, and she came back and she found that the products just weren't nearly as effective. They weren't as high quality. There were things missing, and so I just love hearing these stories. I love getting to know other people and hearing how Plexus has met their needs, physically, but also financially. And so it's such a joy to have you with us tonight, Josie. We appreciate your time. So thanks for joining us. And everyone, thank you for being here. If you have questions, you can drop those in the chat, and we'll take a few minutes and we can answer any questions that you have. But for now, I'm just going to end this recording, and thank you all for joining us tonight.